Okay guys, so let's get started with the this keyword. So in JavaScript, this keyword refers to the object that it belongs to. And don't worry about the this keyword. I didn't get it at the start. It will take a bit of time and some exercises, but this is what this course is about. We learn something and then we exercise it till we got it. Okay? And also the this keyword in a function behaves a little differently than in other programming languages. So in JavaScript, I mean. It also has some differences between regular functions and arrow functions. So let's get started by first of all creating a app.js. Let's go in here, app.js, and also let's include it in down here, script and app.js. So let's link up our app.js in our HTML. Okay, so you should have this already downloaded, and this is actually where we're going to work on this keyword, construction function, object prototype, prototype inheritance, and everything. We'll just work on this. So let's get started. Open up our console. Let's zoom in a bit. And I think, let's see. Yeah, you should be able to see this. Okay, so let's go into our app and let's get started by creating a object. So let's go const and let's call this a person. And we will assign this person a few properties. So objects prop. Let's say first name. And let's say Norbert. Are you fed up with Norbert? Just choose another name then. Then last name. Reinhardt and who? There we go. And let's give it the ID of, let's say, just some ID. I don't actually need this, but I want it to be complete. Now, we can also assign it a method. So let's go in here and let's say method. This would be a method, which is actually, just give me the name it of full name. And we'll assign it to a anonymous function. So let's just go with the function keyword, open and close parentheses, and then within brackets, let's declare the function, which should return, and we'll return this dot first name, okay, plus a empty string. So we have some space between the first name and then this dot last name. Okay, so if I we're missing here a plus. So if I close this up and go down here and let's console log our object of person. There we go. We have our object and we can see it has here in a proto. Where do we have it? So we have, there it is actually. Not in the proto. We'll do this later on. In here it has his method, the function which should return a full name. Now, in order to call this method, we just type in person. We close this up, person dot full name, because it's a method, we have to open and close parentheses, so call the function. And if we click on it and we call it, then we will get Norbert Meinhardt. Now, so as you can see, this refers, called within the function, refers to its owner, and the owner of this function is the object, so the person object. And this will look in this object and will look for a first name, which is included in the object, and for a last name. Now, for example, if I would create here arrow function, let's just copy this and we'll delete this and use arrow function. Okay, and now if I call this one, so the person.full name, but also the arrow function, this will return undefined and undefined. And I will explain it a bit later on. But first of all, I just wanted to give you an example of an object and how we can call this. Now, in most cases, in most cases, the value of this is determined by how the function is called, or otherwise said by the runtime binding. And it can be set by assigning during execution, and it may be different each time the function is called. So ES6 introduces the bind method to set the value of the function's this regardless of how it's called. And ES 2015 introduces arrow function which doesn't provide their own this binding. So it retains the this value of the enclosing context. So in object methods, this refers to its owner. So in the example above, this refers to the person object, and the person object is owner of the full name function, or of this full name method, which is a function. Now let me give you another example. Let's just create down here an object, let's call it brick, because I'm from the construction industry. So let's go with the brick, and let's say that the brick has a height, it has a length, and also a height then. So length of 40, and it has a width of, let's say, 20. Now these are the properties. Now let's go with the method. Let's calculate the surface. And let's say function, so anonymous function. And within here, we'll call this function should return and this function should return the length times the width. And I should also use this keyword. So this dot length times this dot width. So let's call our brick console log. Let's console log our brick. And now we'll console log a method of surface. Open and close parentheses because it's a method. So we get 8,000. And now let's go with explaining first of all what are these. These are not potatoes, these are square centimeters, for example. And I could also take this and divide it by 100, and I would get, actually by 1000, and then I would get 0.8, and now it's square meters. Okay, so what would happen if I would return this? Actually, we don't need it without this keyword. Let's see what happens. So if I hit save, it's undefined. So it's looking for something that is not in the object. That is why we use this keyword. So let's see what happens when we use the this keyword on its own. So let's say we have a const x and we assign it to this. Now let's console log x, and what do you think will happen? First of all, let's get rid of this error. And let me also comment these two out so we don't have any interference. Now I console log this and it's giving me an object. It's giving me the window object. This is because this belongs now to the window. Okay? If I would, let's say const x is name, and here an equal sign, name, as you can see, we cannot console log x, actually this, we cannot console log this within the object, but if I would go outside, I want to console log the object, yeah, it's already been defined. Okay, so I would get my object, this dot y, it will return undefined. So let's just go down here and let's just console log this on its own. Let's see what happens. I would get the window object again, because again, when we console log in this, it will always return its owner, and its owner is now the window object. So let's see what happens when we return it in a regular function. So let's just say function, I'm going to give it the name, my function. And let's say this will just return this. Okay, so let's console log our function here, my function. And again, we get the window object. Why is this? As I said, when this is called in a regular function, it will always call the function's owner. And again, the function's owner, because it's in the global object here, is the window object. Now this in an arrow function, so let's just say this would be regular. And let's copy this. Go down here. Oop, too many times. Let's see what happens if we call it in an arrow function. So I would just let's declare here user, let user, and assign it to the object. And let's say we have our first name again, Norbert, and our last name, Meinhardt, and let's create a method of full name. And this time we're going to use a, hey, close up. This time we're going to use the arrow function. And let's go with this dot first name, and then just copy it, and this dot last name. Now let's call our user, so console log user and the method of full name, and let's see what happens. Undefined, undefined. And this is because the handling of this is also different in arrow functions compared to regular functions. And this is because in short, with arrow functions there are no binding of this. In a regular function, this keyword represents the object that calls the function, which could be the window or the document, as we said, or this object in this case, this user object. But within arrow functions, the this keyword always represents the object that defined the arrow function. So let's give another example. In an event, what will happen when we use the this keyword in an event, and this refers to the element that receives the event. So let's just say, let's go with the const, and let's say const btn, and we're going to assign it to the document, and we're going to try to grab onto this button right here. Okay, now HTML, you will see it is, where is it? There it is, button with a class of btn. So let's go document dot query selector, and I'm going to select the button itself, so the button tag, and we're going to add, well, go outside, add an event listener of click, and when we click it, we're going to run a function now we'll call this dot style dot background color, background color, and I'm going to turn it with red, so to red. So if I push this button, it should theoretically turn it red. So let's try it out. Whoa, it worked. Now let's also try it with a arrow function. So back arrow function. Let's hit save again, and let's push the button again. Let's see what happens. An error. Cannot set property background color of undefined. So again, this sees it as undefined. This is the object as undefined. So we need to use here a regular function when using this keyword. Okay guys, so that's pretty much it for this for now. So see you in the next one. Bye bye.